Thank you for sharing. And that also is the perfect segue into our first panel, which is the pandemic pivot. I will note that if you aren't already on Zoom in speaker view, that may be a little more helpful since we have a number of people talking. And we've already introduced Alison. I'd also like to introduce Lisa Craig-Brisson, who is the Michigan Museum Association's Executive Director. MMA has been supporting the work of Michigan museums for over 60 years, representing art, history, science, military and maritime, and youth museums, as well as aquariums, zoos, botanical gardens, arboretums, historic sites, and science and technology centers. We also have Katherine Luellen, who is the Executive Dean for Enrollment Management here at Interlochen Center for the Arts. She is a Chicago native, previously had positions at Boston University School of Music, Carnegie Mellon University School of Music, Bard College, and the University of Puget Sound. She has also spent over 10 years performing professionally in opera, concert, and musical theater. And our final panelist is Jennifer McQuistion-Lott, who has had an amazing career as a dancer, choreographer, teacher, director, and advocate for the arts. Her company and choreography credits are robust, and I urge you to look at hers and everyone else's in the bios. But in I'm a little sleep deprived. I just had a brain thing. In 2012, Jennifer and Brent Whitney launched the Traverse City Dance Project, a seasonal company for professional dance artists right here in Traverse City, Michigan. It is now celebrating its 8th season. So let's meet our speakers and let's talk. I heard a quote just a few weeks ago. Resiliency is the ability to pivot over and over again. Since I thought that was like the perfect vision of what we have been doing for the past 15 months. As the pandemic hit, the creative sector has been just dramatically impacted on all levels. So what we'd like to do is maybe take a look at how, this view that everybody has had, what's worked, what hasn't, where are we, will we ever, what are our after times going to look like? So much has changed. And each of our speakers, you all come from different perspectives, statewide institutions, academic institutions and organizations, and groups at the very local level, all have many, many moving parts. So looking back and looking forward, do you have just one or two words that might capture this pandemic era for you? Personally, mine is exhausted. So I'd like to know what you think. And also, can you give us a broad brush glimpse of your organization's past year and how you've kind of navigated through? Why don't we start with you, Lisa?
Thanks, Mary. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right. Well, I'm delighted to be here. Mary has been asking me to participate in the summit for many years, and I'm happy to do it this year and look forward to meeting you in the future. So I was thinking hard about my words, and I decided I need 3 words, Mary. It's alternating between adrenaline and exhaustion. That is what the year has been, in my opinion. And it's been interesting. And to the question, what has the Michigan Museums Association, how have we navigated the pandemic? And I am really proud of us as an organization, and I'm not sure how familiar you all are with us, but we do what all professional associations do. We focus on networking and professional development for museums in Michigan, and we say that we focus on expertise, engagement, and advocacy. So we try and help people working in museums get the information that they need to be able to do their work. We try to connect them with each other so that they can support each other and learn from each other. And then we like to provide a voice for the broader Michigan museum community and help individuals have a louder voice themselves. So we have not changed one iota of that. We are continuing to do all three of those things, but we have literally changed every method of how we do that. We used to be 100% in person. Now we are 100% online. I live in Sheboygan, so I'm in the middle of the state, but I'm also very far away from almost everyone in the state. And so, for me to do programming, there's a lot of that, the impact was very dispersed and very sort of one-on-one. And now the impact is everywhere, and our engagement numbers I'm sure, I haven't looked at the numbers in a while, but between March 15th of last year and now, we've engaged with more people than we probably have now looking back 20 years in the association. It's just been, okay, maybe only 10, but still, it's been just amazing and incredible. So that's been, that's why I'm exhausted, but it's also why I have a lot of adrenaline, because it's been exhilarating.
And coffee helps all the time. Thanks, Lisa. Katherine, Katie, how Interlochen has pivoted on so many levels, and you have done so much. Can you give us your perspective?
Yeah, for sure. So Interlochen, I'm sure many of you know, and I'm delighted to be here with all of you and learn more about the great work that's happening in Michigan and keeping the arts alive and moving forward. And it's really an important part of all of our work, I know. So at Interlochen, we have a number of different business units. Interlochen Arts Academy, our boarding arts high school, Interlochen Arts Camp, in-person arts camp, Interlochen Online, virtual programming, College of Creative Arts, which Gary is very involved with, Interlochen Public Radio, I think Peter is around here, as well as our presenting arm. So the pivot was very multifaceted because of dealing with all of those different business units. From where I sit, the pandemic has been incredibly inspiring, because I look out my window and I see 500 Academy students in their masks, away from their families, here on our campus all year, 18 weeks in the fall, 15 weeks in the spring, because they wanted to do their art, because they wanted to be a part of a creative education. So they made a really hard choice, and they're here and they're doing that work. And so I feel that it's been really inspiring in a lot of ways for me to be able to pivot again and again, as you said, exhausting, yes, but also to see these young people really hungry for engagement in different types of spaces has been really wonderful. For us at Interlochen, we pivoted last spring to a fully virtual summer experience that was successful, and then that continued to have a life of its own in Interlochen Online all year, and will also happen again this summer. But we're back in person for Arts Camp as well, hosting almost as many students in a very creative, reduced capacity, shorter programs offering. So that was a fascinating puzzle to put together. And we're really probably still putting a lot of that puzzle together, as my colleagues say, and Gary's heard me say, we're flying a really nice plane. There are just no seats in it yet. So we're working that out. But I really think, at least from where I sit, there's a lot of inspiration for these young people who are engaging in the arts in different ways, connecting worldwide with young artists that they haven't, with teachers. Think of Mo Willems and his, YouTube art classes. And so I think it's been really pretty fascinating to work in education, the arts, hospitality, sort of this trifecta of industries. I don't know if that answered any questions, but that's what I think about.
Great, thank you. So Jennifer, the Traverse Dance Project, Traverse City Dance Project, you're a young organization, and that's been, you have had to pivot in very different ways. Again, very local, smaller organization, and also you're operating this from a couple of different states as well, aren't you? Can you tell us about your experience?
Yeah, so I think as the Traverse City Dance Project, we've always been small and pretty nimble as an organization. And that was something that we sort of prided ourselves on from the beginning, that, we could come in, we needed very few resources. And that's obviously, I think we've historically not had enough resources. But what happened with the pandemic is that we really realized that we are both local, and our communities really are local, they're national, and they're international, because we're dealing with dance and professional level dance, which is a pretty small community. And it just is that. It is that whether you're in Traverse City or you're in Los Angeles, where I live most of the year, or you're in New York, where my co-founder and executive director, Brent Whitney, lives for part of the year. And so what we did, the first thing we did, Brent has actually moved to Traverse City almost full time now since the start of the pandemic, which was hugely helpful for us. And we really decided to focus on community and how we support our community. And that is in particular a community of dancing people and music and musicians who suddenly lost all of their work. How do we give them creative opportunities, and how do we give them hope in the midst of this very, very sudden loss of income and creative life? And, dancing in particular is completely communal as an art form, touching each other, being in space together. That is the meat of what we do. And of where we spend our time. So what we did is we founded something called the No Distance Festival, which basically we commissioned new works from choreographers and composers who, sometimes were across the world from each other. And most of them have had connection with us through, working with the Traverse City Dance Project in the past, but some of them hadn't. Some of them, this is especially for the composers, it was their first time writing music for dance. So we commissioned a total of 15 works, and we also co-commissioned a work with Parallel 45 Theater from Jakevis Thomason, who is a young choreographer, one of my former students at the University of Southern California, where I teach during the year, and just an incredibly developed and astute voice, and especially in response or in the wake of the cases of police brutality and the Black Lives Matter protests. It seemed very important to just give space to young artists of color. So Jakevis made a beautiful work. We gave him totally free rein with Parallel 45 to create whatever he wanted. And what he ended up making was a work using a young actor who had also been connected with Parallel 45 called Accept. And actually, if you haven't seen it, I'll put the link in the chat, because we're really, really proud of what this became. And that was just an example of, I think we served about 40 different artists this past summer, and raised money for them. And basically with the No Distance Festival, because our overhead was relatively low, and for me, it was a labor of love as the editor and curator, we were able to, just give opportunities and a little bit of resources, but more than resources, I think just some encouragement and networking opportunities to artists. Oh, and I should say one more thing. The pandemic also gave us a little bit of time, me and Brent, to put our energy behind a project that has been really important to us for years, which is the Moving Theater. And I have to thank the Michigan Council for the Arts for supporting this. We are now moving forward into 2021, focusing on a completely outdoor season of performances. And thank you so much. And this is a resource that we're going to be able to share with the local community and arts community in Traverse City. We're already collaborating with a symphony orchestra, Parallel 45 Theater, and a local dance school called Dance Arts Academy that has been very supportive of us in the past. They will be using this stage also. It's an outdoor stage, and it's ADA compliant. So the goal is to be able to take this anywhere, increase access, and availability of live performance as we're all returning from the pandemic lifestyle.
Very good, thank you. Yeah, please share the link in the chat. We will also be sharing resources with everybody, both on our website and then individually as we follow up here. So, Alison, Yeah, I think that you've already covered things with MCACA, but if there was anything else we could add in, please just jump in on that one. But what I'd love to do is say, as we've talked about new programming and the things we've added in, as our restrictions are lifting, we're all managing various levels of reopening. What we wonder is, what does tomorrow look like? I think everybody wants to go back to normal. I want to go back to football Saturdays. I want to go back to I want to go back to the vacation place we always went to with families that we're missing for the second year in a row. I want to be able to just drop in at a movie theater, go to the theater, go to a museum, and that's it. I don't think we're ever completely going there, but there is that push to, and we've had these new programs that have been started. You've all talked about different ones, and there are more. There's that push to keep all this new stuff that's working well. There's also this urge to go back to what we did before. That plate gets very full, and it was a full plate to start out with. How do we make those decisions? How are you thinking about this, and how do we make those best decisions on what do we keep, what do we modify, what do we maybe leave in the past, and how are you going through that decision making? So Alison, why don't you pop in there with MCACA and what you're seeing around the state?
Yeah, it is definitely something that we're thinking about, and because it's hard, right? We know that we want to get back out, and we want to have the people in our spaces, and people want to do those things at some point when we feel comfortable. But at the same point, part of the virtual pieces that we've learned, it makes it easier. Well, I'll speak for myself I have family, and I'm not going to lie, there's some things that are virtual based that I am so thankful that they're virtual based, because we can stream a symphony concert from the comfort of our own home. And I can have my youngest, who is 6, be part of it. And I don't have to worry about sit still, don't move, be quiet. Don't say anything. All of those anxiety things that that as a parent you think about when you take your families to certain events. At home now, we can put it on, and it doesn't matter. We can get up and make popcorn and go to the bathroom 15 times and not have to interrupt the folks that are seated next to us, and enjoy it. So I think there's things that we'll have to normalize in terms of certain types of programming when we think about our reach and expansion of what we offer, because there is an ease factor, right? And I know that's not for everyone, but I also think about folks that maybe have transportation issues, or even one of the things that we have to think about that we might not have thought about moving forward is social anxiety. That's going to be a real factor as we move forward. And it's that regardless if all the restrictions are lifted, there's going to be still a large portion of our population that is going to have those anxiety issues for quite a while. So I don't know what the balance is, I think, but we'll have to figure, each organization is going to have to figure that out for themselves. I know that's not a great answer. The other piece that we spend a lot of time thinking about is monetizing those virtual events. We gave away everything for free, right, at the beginning. And how do you pull that back? So we've been watching the newspapers, because if you think about newspapers, right, that went all online with a newspaper, and you could read a newspaper from anywhere in the world for free. And now they're trying to pull that back. And how do they monetize it? Because they found out they weren't making any money, and they couldn't afford to have the reporters. So I think that that's something that we're going to have to, we're watching how the newspapers are doing it to see how we can then bring that what they're learning as they're monetizing their online services into our thinking for arts and cultural organizations.
Okay, thank you. And I am sorry, Alison, could you just check your audio a little bit? There was a bit of feedback that was coming through. Uh, Sorry, it didn't before, but it was now. Lisa, how about, from your perspective?
So as you were asking the question, like, what is the after times going to look like? In my head, I was screaming, I don't know. We don't know. That's what's so hard about all this. Like, literally, there's no, I am the biggest planner and there's no data. There's no information, right? So I don't know. I don't know. That's my answer. But this is what I'm doing, right? And I'm going to talk about this later in the breakout session, but I am collecting the data that I can, right? I don't know what is happening, honestly, tomorrow. But what do I know now? And what do I know today? And what is the next best step? So, as I mentioned earlier, we moved all of our programming online. I'm doing one program a week with our members in the Michigan community. And we've developed all this programming and it's wonderful and robust, and we'll definitely keep a lot of it. But I'm sensing it, that transition we've had, like, this is the 5th transition for people in museums about going back to work, being open, serving their members in different ways. And so I can feel everybody's getting busy again. And so our numbers are dropping on our online programs. And it's getting to the point where I'm going to have a hard time justifying my time with those few of numbers. So at some point, we're going to have to pull a program. I'm not going to, I can't do programs for 4 people. And so I don't know, what program is that going to be? I don't know. I love all of them. There's like 4 more I'm trying to do, right? So I'm looking at the data. So what is the data? I'm looking at I'm looking at registrations. I'm looking at no-shows. I'm looking at engagement during the program. I'm looking at evaluations. And, I'm just looking everywhere I can to find the data that I can. So I don't know what the after times are going to look like, Mary. I know that they're going to be really different from today. And really different from the before times, but probably have a lot is similar with the before times and today. And I'm just focusing on what is the information I actually have and what are the steps I can take today to work with those.
Very good. Jennifer, how about you?
Yeah, I have to say, I appreciate the statement of, I don't know, because I do think, this has taught us to be so nimble, right? The pandemic has taught us that we really don't know what's happening tomorrow. But I have to say, for one, again, I cannot wait to get back to live space. I think that we as an organization, again, the liveness kind of feeds our souls, and it is the thing that we really love. We love to be in space together. So, that is definitely a priority, to be back in live space. But I also, I also work at the University of Southern California with a bunch of very hip, trendy 18 to 20 somethings. And I've really been talking and listening to them a lot. And actually, in my student population at the Kaufman School of Dance, I've had 2 students who hailed from Traverse City, and we've had a lot of conversations about Michigan and what the future of performance might look like in Michigan. And I think that really leaning into young people and talking to them has been helpful, and something that I would love to see them leading. And this return to I don't even think it's a return. I think it's a reframing of how we engage in public spaces. And we really, one of the things that we keep saying in our conversations, or keeps coming up, is that there's no one platform anymore, that we're all kind of going to be multi-platforming, I think, for the foreseeable future. And there's something wonderful about that. I think, especially when we're talking about accessibility, that we can reach, my father now, he has Alzheimer's, he lives in a home. He can be reached with performance, even when they're shut down because of COVID, because they have cases or whatever, they can actually, we can stream a performance into a nursing home where people might not be able to see performance live. Or, I think the fact that, again, our communities can now, I don't go anywhere where I don't meet people who don't have connections to Michigan. And so that broader Michigan community that is pretty global, actually, I think can also connect into our performance lifestyle. So I think whether that's live streaming or podcasting or, just making sure that recordings of performances are available, I think that is one of the things that's going to be there for the foreseeable future.
Very good. We had a good question that came in from the chat, and I'm going to put this out, and why doesn't anybody just jump in? We will presumably be pivoting again from crisis to recovery and be able to enjoy live performance again. What do you think artists need most in this transition, and what kind of support will artists need next?
I can jump in, Mary, and maybe pivot a little bit off
Great,
of
thanks,
what
Katie.
other folks said. And I just maybe a little bit to what we were just speaking about. You know, I hope when we're back in person and back to normal, you know, certain things that have happened during the pandemic, like accessibility, like more attention to diversity, equity, and inclusion, you know, can still remain in our programming. And I do think, as Jennifer said, we will all be multi-platformed. I think a lot about, you know, that moment of the we're being back in person and the onslaught of things that will happen and how organizations will differentiate themselves and be able to get over the bump of the honeymoon period, and really be able to stay the course from, frankly, from a revenue perspective, from deepening relationships with the constituencies they serve, and kind of what's going to be most important. I think a lot of people are used to really having very instant access to things and having very intimate access to things, or being very wallflowered, right? But we can have a one-on-one Zoom. I mean, even in the recruitment world, I've been able to connect with parents and students all over the world, actually in a much more focused way than ever before. And I will never go back to the way we did it before. And I think especially if you work for an organization, I know, Jennifer, your organization is sort of blossoming in a new way, but if you have a historical, you know, organization like Interlochen, this is a pivotal moment. You one shot at that turn back, right? In terms of what it will be. And I think for artists, you know, it's their health and well-being, their kind of success support, right? I guess I think a bit from the student angle, but even from emerging professionals, you know, the job that they might have hoped for or been working towards may no longer exist in the same way. So are they prepared to pivot as they come back? I think that's important in terms of giving them support.
All right. Anybody else like to jump in on that, artist support?
Can I say one thing? I just
Please.
am so impressed. I'm sorry. Thank you. I'm so impressed with the way that large institutions have, you know, and arts institutions like Interlochen have managed the pandemic. You're basically working with a small city and, you know, and I work at the University of Southern California, and it has been, you know, nightmarish at times, but really thrilling also to see how quickly and nimbly and, you know, proactively these institutions were to both protect their people, but also keep the arts programming alive. So I just want to say thank you and applaud Interlochen and, you know, the Michigan museums. I am thrilled that these institutions have found ways to make it through.
Very good. Whoops. My mouse got rid of the chat I was starting to read from. So we wanted to share a comment, and that's for us at Higher Art. After a year of not having in-person art openings, no art walks, it's so hard to know when to begin to resume these things. Even as a business owner, being responsible while also walking the line of trying to reintroduce things is really hard. For instance, the downtown art walk is this week. It's a scaled back version with no beverages or food allowed as people go from place to place. This actually could be a good thing, as now it will be more about the artist and not about the free wine. Perhaps this could be a pivot that could remain in place on some level. Any thoughts just along these lines about that kind of walking the line or anything?
Boy, people just don't agree, right? That's the hard part. It's like the budget Alison was talking about, right? No one's going to agree. And, you know, you can always find a study to retort someone's, you know, choice of X or Y. And so I think it just depends on the who you're serving, who's most important in the work that you do. Is it the artist? Is it the community? Is it the student? And really kind of trying to stay focused on those that you serve, which sometimes pisses off other people, frankly, right? At Interlochen, parents are not allowed on campus. Nope, they can't come. They dropped them off in the parking lot. That was it. Bye. It was great, you guys. It was great. But even for an art walk, I think just trying to connect with people too on a deeper level. What do they want? What do they need? What are they anticipating? Might help too.
I also, I think it's about us letting go of our fears as people doing things for the public, right? Like, so MMA in the before times, I was very conservative as an administrator. We're very tiny. We have very few resources. And so I really didn't move forward on things that I didn't think was going to be a win in most boxes, right? But we don't know, right? So I have had to get super comfortable with this idea that we're going to fall on our faces. And we have tried a couple different things that have just been, a failure, total failure. Now we've been lucky that we haven't started back to in-person yet. And I have the freedom to be able to just say, we're not doing anything. We hope to do something this fall. And, the reality is though, we've made decisions that have made people unhappy or frustrated. We've lost members, I'm sure, because of certain things that we've done. But we've also gained members. We found who we are a little bit more, but ultimately it's that sense of fear of what if I do it the wrong way? What if we make someone mad? What if we, what if we, and I think that that's maybe one of the positive reckonings of COVID times has been that we've just had to get over ourselves and over those fears and just move forward and do it. But it's hard. It's very hard. But just do it. This is my pep talk for the morning. Just keep doing it. We are awesome. Creative people, cultural people. We are already used to doing things differently than everybody else. So we can do this too.
I keep telling my staff, stay the course. Just stay the course, my friends. Don't get distracted. Yeah.
I remember being in some sessions, actually it was a number of years ago, way pre-pandemic, and it was kind of an entrepreneurial thinking. And they also said, just embrace uncertainty. And that's it. Just embrace it. Don't and breathe. Keep breathing. So, are there any questions from the audience? We've got about probably about 7-8 minutes more to go. You can put them in the chat. Or you could raise hands. And if I'm not seeing you, please, if I don't see you, maybe wave it really very big, and Gary will. Well, we're asking for that. Alison, did you want to pop in with anything, from your perspective? Unless I cut you off for feedback again.
Oh, sorry. Do I have the feedback again?
You do. Sorry.
It's because I talked too much earlier.
Okay, well.
I'll put a little message in the chat and I'll pop out, Gary, and come back.
Okay. Any Lily Franklin, you raised your hand. Why don't you unmute and ask, and share?
Hi, so I'm actually with the Cadillac Area Visitors Bureau. I am a student at Ferris State University. I used to be very involved with our bands, and those kind of went away. And right now we're looking at how to introduce more arts and cultural stuff at Cadillac. So I was wondering if you guys had any suggestions on what are good starter events or such to really bring back arts into the focus.
Any thoughts?
One thing is you probably could partner with us at UNA in Cadillac. Would probably be your first step, Lily, just to let you know where
Sorry, I'm new.
Yeah, just so you know, we're the arts and cultural part of Cadillac. So if you can partner with us, we also run the art fair and a number of other different events. That might be your first step, honestly.
And you know what? I'm going to connect you too. So I will get you your contact information, and we will kind of, like I say, get you guys connected, hopefully with each other. And why don't we kind of take this up with the whole group, because we're thrilled to have a whole group from Cadillac joining us today, both from UA, from up north, and also the visitors group. Alison did share one thing that I've decided to do during these uncertain times is just try it. What is the worst that is going to happen? If it doesn't work out, someone says no. I think the pandemic has given us the freedom to take a chance.
I agree with that. And maybe even to the question that was just asked, you know, the partnering, the reaching out, the connecting with colleagues, like we all need sounding boards and support. And I mean, at Interlochen, we could not recruit the way we do without over 100 community-based organizations that we work with, you know, to get access to students. And, you know, so who can you call? Who can you cold email? You know, just to say, I have a question. Can we connect? Can we have a Zoom happy hour? I do this with my colleagues at Idlewild and Walnut Hill all the time, or Tanglewood. You know, we're like, let's just talk about this, because we're all in the good fight together.
Very good. And actually, that's a perfect segue for me to give kind of a little promotional push for our monthly regional roundtables that we have. Yeah, it's a great time to share. These started when the pandemic first crashed on us. It's a way to connect and share resources. But just remember, we meet by Zoom the first Thursday of every month. It's purely drop-in, very informal. And we always use the same Zoom link. It's my personal chat room. So it's always on the website and also in our e-blast. So please join us when you can. It doesn't always work, but it's a great time to do that sharing. We only have about a minute left. Are there any last comments that we can you'd like to throw out from each one of our guests? Jennifer, going to start with you.
Well, I just have to echo partnering, community. I think these are the things that have really risen to the top for me in the pandemic, how important our community is, and to be continuously just developing and supporting. So yeah, and I want to thank you for this panel as another opportunity to do that. There's many faces here that people I don't know, and parts of the community I haven't been able to connect with yet personally. So I really look forward to more growth in the future. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Lisa, couple closing words.
Yeah, Lily, I want to tell you there's a number of museums in your region as well that would be good partners. And all of you that aren't museums on this call, you have museums in your communities that are excellent partners as well, which leads me to my final thought, which is I'm part of the Cultural Advocacy Network of Michigan, which is working to bring together all arts and cultural organizations in the state to advocate for what we're doing, right? And we're a new organization. We're spending a lot of time figuring out what does arts and culture have in common? Well, there's a lot that we don't have in common, but there's a lot that we do have in common. And I feel like what we have in common is that we're all the organizations and the people in the communities that are sort of addressing the heart of who we are as people and as communities and as places. And we focus on creativity and heritage and memory and all those things. We do all those things together in a way that is special and different than most other people and organizations in our communities, right? We have our own little thing that we're doing. And when you think about the pandemic, those are the things that we lost and missed the most. So if there's anybody that's positioned to help with the healing and help with the coming together and the after times, is our organizations. We are the ones. And we need to just keep that and remember that and know that we have these superpowers that are going to help us with the next things that we're all facing together.
Thank you. Katie, final words.
I think I've been really thinking a little bit on this panel, and thank you. I'll echo Jennifer just for the opportunity and to meet new faces. And I hope I get to see many of you in person sometime soon. But, we all serve so many different artists and patrons and arts lovers at really such a variety of places on their journey. I'm thinking like a 4-year-old kids commute listener of IPR, a 14-year-old dancer at arts camp, an 18-year-old graduate of the academy, a 21-year-old camp counselor at Interlochen, a 40-year-old alumnus, and a 90-year-old visitor patron coming to see Reba McEntire or whatever it is. And I think, I think it's just so important as a community that we kind of work together to serve that arc of life in the arts and culture in our communities and in people's journeys. And as they pivot, I often say to students, the road is not straight. It's real circuitous. And that's great. That's exciting, and that's how you have to think about it. And if you're nervous, great. It means you care. And I think to all of us who've said, wow, I'm nervous. We were nervous to try in this pandemic. That's great. That's because we cared, and we have to keep that kind of alive, I think, in our hearts to meet the needs of all of these different cohorts of humans and to keep the art alive and current and moving forward. So I think as much as we can connect, as much as we can contribute to each other's organizations, hey, go to the museum. Hey, have you been to the performance with that's being done in this new space this summer? Are you, do you have a young person who would benefit from one of the programs we're offering? And really be open to that. I think we do get sort of bogged down. I know I do, right? My job is to, make sure students come to Interlochen and to make money, frankly, right? To keep the lights on. We all have to do that. But I'm hoping that, and I'm sure fundraising is another topic of this whole conference, but that I think fundraising is going to take a different turn too in all of this. And I think we're going to see different constituents really engaged there if we can deepen those relationships. So that was a weird comment, but there you go.
Thank you. And Alison, even if you do sound like, I think you said, somebody in a witness protection program, would you like some closing comments?
They're after me, I guess. Do I sound better now?
Now you sound great.
Okay,
Yes.
I think what I would leave you with is to just try it, right? This, if nothing else, programs, partnerships, reaching out to somebody that you've thought about before, but you just haven't done it because we worry about the bathrooms being clean, that the doors are unlocked, that things are getting done, that just reach out and ask. Because what's the worst that's going to happen? They're going to say, no, it's not the right time. Maybe next year, or you do try something new and it doesn't work out. But I think this is the time that we can get away. I know I've tried to do things or reach out and it falls flat. And you know what? I go, pandemic, oh well. And I feel like I've gotten that luxury to sort of say, it didn't work. It's because of the pandemic. And I can move on to the next thing. So I encourage you to ask those questions, to try something new, or try those things that you've been thinking about. What's the worst that's going to happen at this point in time?
All right. Thank you. And thank you to all of our panelists. Alison, Lisa, Katie, Jennifer, and everyone for sharing your questions and such. We're going to go into our next panel. However, I think we need to take a quick stretch. So we're not going to take a 5-minute break. We're going to take maybe a 2-minute break or one. We'll be starting about 10:45, which is in 90 seconds. So stretch. If you're at home, run to the restroom if you need to. And in the meantime, we're going to welcome our next panel on diversity and inclusion. They'll be facilitated by Sarah Barrett Neal.